Hey YouTube, this is Tom at TM Aquatics, and I hope everyone's doing great. It's been about 4 or 5 weeks since I uploaded my last video here on the YouTube platform. Just been terribly busy here in the fish room. In fact, immediately after that last video went live, a bunch of my Corydoras started spawning for me, and I had some really good success with the hatches. So in today's video, I'm going to take you around the fish room, give you a quick update on what's been going on. I'll showcase some of the Corydoras fry that we have available. I'll show you some of the Plecos that we have available as well. And then I'm going to show you some new tanks that I just added and I'm really excited to have here at TM Aquatics. Now these tanks just aren't new to my fish room, but it's a new tank size to the market. And I think it's a game changer. But anyways, I do hope you stick around and check this one out. Alright YouTube, today's video is really going to be focused on some of the breeding projects and some of the available Corydoras and Plecos I have back in the fish room. But I really wanted to show these fish here because they have grown quite a bit since you saw them last. So we're going to start out here in the rec room with this 120-gallon tank right now, and I have a big group of L134 leopard frog plecos in here that I've been growing out. I have had a few spawns from them and actually had a couple of fry. Unfortunately, they didn't make it here about a month ago. But really, I wanted to show one of the newer additions to my collection. And again, I picked these up, 2-3 months ago from Dan's Fish. But these are threadfin, albino threadfin acaras. And it's a fish that I had been considering for quite a while, but they have just grown and developed into some just absolutely beautiful fish. Now, for those that are new to my channel, a while back I had a bunch of big red severums in this tank, and I ended up getting rid of those big red severums, I don't know, a year ago, year and a half, I don't know, it's been a while. But when I got rid of those fish, I instantly regretted it and wanted them back. Even as the guy was driving down the street, I wanted to go chase after him and I want my fish back. But a deal's a deal and we move on. So anyways, moved in a bunch of these L134 leopard frog plecos, but there was just no life. And then I noticed that Dan at Dan's Fish had some of these albino threadfin acaras. Again, they were a lot smaller when I picked them up. Again, 2-3 months ago, I'm guessing, something like that. But they have doubled, tripled, quadrupled in size, and they are just absolutely gorgeous fish. I'm absolutely in love with these fish. Now, I don't know about male-female ratios, anything like that. I didn't breed them with the or buy them with the intent on breeding, but if I get a pair break off, I will definitely do my darndest to try and spawn this fish because I think they're absolutely worth the commitment. So just a fantastic fish. So anyways, just wanted to show those off real quick, and because they've changed so much since my last video. But anyways, let's head back to the fish room, get on with the business at hand, and take a look at, number one, a bunch of Corydoras that we're growing out, and number two, some new tanks that we have back in the fish room. Alright YouTube, we're back here in the fish room, and this is not going to be a full fish room tour. I want to focus on some of the fish that we've been breeding and growing out here, and fish that will be available in the very, very near future, specifically Corydoras and some Plecos. And then I want to show everybody the new tanks that we just added here at TM Aquatics. But for those that might be stopping by my channel for the very first time, I do want to give you a quick nickel tour of the full fish room so you understand what we're working with or what I'm working with here, and go from there. So out in the rec room, I showed you the 120-gallon. I also have a 75-gallon out there. It's a low-tech planted tank with a bunch of red coral pencilfish in it. But back here in the fish room, when you first enter, there's a triple stack of 40 breeders. Up here in this top tank is two groups of Plecos that I'm growing out. There's a group of L174. They're a high pansistrus out of the Rio Xingu. And then there's a group of L471 mini snowball Plecos. Most of these fish came from Dan's Fish. with the exception of half of the L174s. They came from a breeder that I know down in central Iowa. In this tank here, actually the lower bottom two 40 breeders, these tanks are full of L134 leopard frog plecos that I've bred here this past over the past 6 months. In this tank there's actually like 65 L134s in here. You might say, oh, it doesn't look like that many, but trust me, they're in there. We pulled that sponge filter out. There's probably 20 to 25 behind that sponge filter alone. Now down here in this bottom tank, this is the oldest juveniles that I have, and they're all pushing 2 inches, maybe 2¼ inches. Well, most of them are. Still might be some sub 2-inch fish in here. But I have been selling a bunch of these locally, and I had 55, 60, 65 in here. I think I'm down to like 30 of them in this tank here. So all in, between what we have available here and up here, probably around 100, maybe give or take, you know, so in that 90 to 110, give or take, because I did sell a bunch locally, as I mentioned, but I also took a bunch from down here, hand selected, and added to the 120-gallon tank that we looked at when we first kicked off this video. So anyways, that's what we have going on in these tanks. These 3 tanks over here in the top tank, I have L46 zebra plecos. In this 55 tank, 55 gallon, I have my adult wild caught group of L134 leopard frog. These are my breeders. They're all wild caught fish. And then down below in this 40 long, this is where I have my Scleromystax barbatus. I believe they're lineage 3. There's 10 or 11 described species of Scleromystax. They're in the same family as Corydoras. They're all in the Clichthiidae genus or family. These are barbatus, my favorite out of the mix. They get a little bit larger than your standard Corydoras type fish. These get about 4 inches in length. They have a real unique prehistoric look to them, and they prefer cooler waters because of the regions or areas that they come out of. Southern Brazil, next to the Uruguay border. Temperatures they come from are in anywhere from like 60 to 70 degrees. They can probably go down into the 50s in water temps. They really don't do well above 75, 76. So I keep these, no heater. I keep them at around 70, 71, the temperature of the fish room. These would go good with Gymnogeophagus. These would go good with like Goodeids or Goodeids, and maybe some native species like rainbow shiners, things like that. They're not going to do well in a heated tropical fish tank, so do keep that in mind, but they're absolutely a wonderful fish to keep and just a ton of personality. And we have about 100 available here at TM Aquatics. So as we come through, and let me just give you perspective as we come in, straight ahead we have 5 20-gallon grow outs. We turn right, we have a rack of tanks here, rack of tanks at the end, a couple tanks down there below. We have these tanks on the left, and then we have a new rack that I'm really excited about, and we'll talk about that rack here in a couple minutes. But that is TM Aquatics. So these tanks here, these are all grow out tanks. We'll come back to that here in just a moment. Over here are some breeding groups of Corydoras. Corydoras duplicarius on the top right, Corydoras axelrodi on the top left, Corydoras kanakis on the middle left, Corydoras bozemanii on the middle right, lower right, Corydoras green lasers, and on the lower left, Corydoras orange Venezuelan, or Corydoras venezuelanus. This rack here, mostly Corydoras with 1 pleco tank. This is a group of L260 Queen Arabesque plecos. These are all fish that were bred here at TM Aquatics. There are 29. I did have 30, but I had a premature violent trapping with an immature female in that top 1-inch cave, and an adolescent male got in behind her, wouldn't let her out. She wasn't ready to spawn. He ended up injuring her beyond the ability for me to help her, and she perished. Over here in this 29, we have 2 newer species to the fish room that I'm excited to work with. The Corydoras black, Schultzii, or Schultzii black. And then we have Corydoras weitzmanni, and these are both young groups, and they'll be separated eventually because the L260s are going to be moved into a new tank, and then one of these groups will be moved into the 40 breeder along with some adult orange lasers that I have in that bottom 75 there. These middle tanks on this rack here, these are CW49 Black Diamond Corydoras. Over here are Corydoras equus. I have, I think, 22 wild-caught Corydoras equus in here. And maybe on my next video I'll talk about a near-miss success with the Corydoras equus. But they're just a beautiful fish and a very, very challenging Corydoras. And then up above I have 7 10-gallon tanks. The first 6 all have juvenile Corydoras in them, and the 10-gallon tank on the right is where I hatch out the Corydoras eggs. I'm not going to talk about these tanks yet because they're new, and I'm super excited about that. Over here on the floor I have a 5-gallon tank. This is temporary, growing out some juvenile Corydoras, one of the last spawns that I'm going to be growing out. And in there might be, I think, Duplicarius, Bozemanni, and CW49s. There's maybe 18 fish in there, 16 to 18 fish. And then the last group of Corydoras that I plan to spawn or grow out this season are in here. Just a real small, I had a real small spawn from my CW49, the Black Diamonds, and only ended up with 4 fry that hatched. So I've got 4 fry, little tiny itty bitties in there. They just hatched a couple days ago, the CW49s. That's it. Down here in this 40-gallon breeder, I have a bunch of L397 growouts. I don't know how many I'm down to. I've been selling some locally. I think I might be down to 25 or 30 L397s. They're Pinaculus. Over here on these 275-gallon tanks, the top tank is where I keep my group of L494. They're a Picoltia, the Picoltia Rio Peru. And then down below is where I have my adult L397s. And then, I shouldn't say it, I have adults, and I also have some subadults in there. If you're new to my channel, in previous videos I mentioned I did lose almost my entire breeding colony of adult L397s about a year ago or so. So I had to restart. I was able to save 3 of the fish, and it was 2 females and 1 male. And in fact, they've had 3 spawns now, none of them successful. But right now in this cave on the left, I don't want to hang out over here too much, but on that cave right to the left, the male is actually in there fanning what looks to be like a good healthy spawn. So fingers are crossed. He hasn't produced and hatched and grown out and protected any spawns yet, but hopefully we have luck with this one. So far the eggs look really good, and they should be hatching within the next day or 2, so fingers are crossed. So anyways, that's what we have going on here at TM Aquatics, and just kind of another view of the fish room. So I'm a breeder of Corydoras and Plecos. You might see in some of the tanks I have dither fish, but I really don't focus on dither fish. My focus here is the Corydoras and the Plecos. Over here, these 5 20-gallon grow-out tanks are all on auto water change, so they're getting 25-30% new water. Each day is moving through the systems. Because they're constantly getting hit with fresh water, they're a little overstocked, but no issues because the amount of fresh water coming in. But this tank on the right, I have about 45 to 50 green lasers, and they're all ready to go. Nice size. They're even getting to the size where I can sex them, although I do sell as unsexed. So I want to be clear about that. I don't have the time when I'm packing and shipping because I have a real job. I have a corporate job. This is just a hobby for me, just like you. This is a hobby, and it's a very time-consuming hobby, but it's a hobby I enjoy. But when it comes time to packing orders and shipping, I don't have time to sit and sex out fish. If you want 6 Corydoras, I'll net 6 and you get the 6 that I net. You know, if time allows, I'll try to, you know, offer some better ratios or, you know, sex, but I just don't want to get in the habit of that because it just creates too much opportunity for disappointment. So if you want a good ratio, order more. That's all I can say. But over in these first 2 tanks, green lasers, between the 2 tanks, close to 100. In this tank here, I have a bunch of orange Venezuelanus and I have a bunch of Corydoras bozemanii growing out. The bozemanii are not an easy fish to source in the hobby. They are very difficult to source. So when you find them, they're going to be a little higher price. They're going to carry a price tag of a hard to source fish. Some people think they look like Corydoras hasbrosus, and I can see that. They're just a lot bigger than a dwarf Cory. But I think I have like 12 or 15 bozemanii. Actually, I think it's like 11 or 12 bozemanii. And then there's some orange Venezuelan in there, but got a bunch more in other tanks. Over here in this tank, I'm growing out a bunch of duckweed. I mean, bristlenose plecos. Not a fish that I really like to grow out here at TM Aquatics. It just kind of happens. But in this tank here, I have orange lasers and I have Corydoras kanakis. Now, I only had 1 spawn from the orange lasers because the adults were not in a breeding tank. They were not in their own tank and being conditioned to spawn. They're in a community tank, and I'm lucky to have got the 12 or 14 juveniles out of them that I did. So part of the changeover here when I move this group of L260 plecos into a new tank that we'll show here in a couple minutes, that will free this tank up for Corydoras, and it's my plan to put my adult orange lasers in there, and then my Corydoras weitzmanii, move them in with the orange lasers. They're different lineages, so no worry about crossbreeding and hybridization. And then that 29 will have just the black Corys by themselves. But anyways, with that being said, in here, Corydoras kanakis. The kanakis, my adult breeders, came from Eric Bodrock. Eric is a very reputable and well-known name within the industry and provides nothing but top quality fish. But that's where the parents of these fish came from, was Eric Bodrock. That's what we have over there. And then up in these tanks here, I have a plethora of Corydoras orange Venezuelanus. We have green lasers, Duplicarius, Axelrodi, bozemanii, and CW49s. So let's take a quick look at all the Corys that are jam-packed and stuffed into these 10-gallon tanks. So as you can see, there are a lot of fish in these tanks, which is why I'm excited to bring a few new tanks into the fish room here, because these guys, there's too many fish in these tanks and they need more space. Now, because the stocking levels, they've been getting daily 50% water changes to keep up with water quality issues, but they need some more space. And I just added 3 new tanks. That's going to help me out quite a bit. And I don't know if I mentioned this last tank here. I don't have any fish in there. I use that to hatch the eggs, and then once the eggs are hatched in egg tumblers, I transfer them to different containers and tanks, etc., etc. So anyways, super excited about this, but I just added 3 new of the very new Aqueon 60 breeders here to the fish room. So these are new not just to TM Aquatics, but this tank size is new to the hobby. These are 60 breeders. So anybody that's not familiar with the 60 breeder yet, Aqueon came out with these about 3 or 4 months ago. I was probably first in line to pick one up. Made a couple Instagram posts and etc., etc. Tank's been sitting here empty for months. It's been driving me nuts. My local Pleco got some in, picked up a second one from Pleco, and then Aqueon started making them available to all the other LFSs. I don't know if they had a early arrangement with just the larger big box stores or whatnot, but one of my LFSs was finally able to source some, and I picked my last and third one up from him. And it was nice because it was significantly lower price than Pleco, significantly lower price. So Anyways, really excited about having these 3 new 60 breeders here. So again, for those that aren't familiar with the 60 breeder, they offer the same footprint as a 75-gallon tank. They're just a shorter tank. So the 75-gallon tanks, I believe, are 21 inches tall. These tanks here are 48.5 inches by 18.5 inches by 16 inches tall. So same footprint as a 75, just shorter, which works out well for me because I focus on bottom-dwelling Corydoras and Plecos. I don't need the height of a 75. The extra water in a 75 is just extra water that I don't use that I pay to heat. So super excited about that. Each one of these tanks will have 2 sponge filters and a hang-on back. Word of caution though, my preferred hang-on back filter on all my tanks, on all my grow-out tanks and Pleco tanks, is the Aquaclear filters. If you see down there, I have 3 new Aquaclear 70s down there. The rim or the lip on the 60 breeders is too wide to fit the Aquaclear 70s. Not sure if an Aquaclear 110 would fit. I suspect it would, since the Aquaclear one, I have an Aquaclear 110 on the 75-gallon tank. But I already have those Aquaclear 70s. Didn't work, so I'll just keep them around for a rainy day. They're already bought and paid for, so what are you going to do? But all these other tanks will have 2 sponge filters, and I had to find a hang-on back that worked with a size lip or the width of these 60 breeders, the frame or the brace. And I came across the Seachem titles. I've never used these. They've never been in my fish room before, but I have a stack of them here. And they fit fine. They work great. In fact, I'm really impressed with this hang-on back filter. I just like the build quality, and I like a few of the features. There's some great reviews online. I'm not going to rehash what other people have already mentioned and talked about on some videos, but I really do like some of the features with this filter. So this might be the filter of choice moving forward. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I picked up 4 of them. I don't need 4, but I picked up 4. I ended up putting the 110 on the bottom tank because this is where I have a big group of Scleromystax barbatus fry, or juveniles. And there's easily 100 of them in here. I figured they could use the extra filtration and water movement. But these are all Scleromystax barbatus, and they are ready to go. They're just waiting for shipping season and waiting for somebody to want to buy them and bring them home. Now also, in addition to the 2 sponge filters and the Seachem title hang-on backs that I'm going to have on all of these tanks, on all the hang-on back filters, I put these things. Let me grab this out real quick. These are sponge pre-filters, and these fit on, this is, I buy these from Co-op over on the West Coast, and this is the large size. I also buy some of the medium size. Let's go over here real quick. The mediums fit on the Aquaclear 30s and the Aquaclear 50s perfect, and they make a great pre-filter for those filters. On the Aquaclear 70s and the Aquaclear 110, this large size fits on there. But this also fits the Seachem titles perfect. What do I like about these? Why do I even add them? Now you look, see how big those pores are? I mean, you can see through this thing darn near. I don't know what the PPI is on these things. I don't know if the PPI is like 10 or 15. I have no idea if it's even 10, but real big pores on here. But you'd be surprised at how much crap these things will collect and prevent from getting into the main body of the filter. And what that does is it allows for real easy maintenance. I take these off like every week when I'm doing water changes, rinse them off in the sink or in a bucket, and you'd be surprised how much crap comes out of these things. And that's stuff that would have gone in the main filter, and it just reduces or increases, let me rephrase that, it increases the amount of time that you can go with, between maintenance on the main part of the canister, hang-on back filter. So I buy these for every one of my hang-on back filters. So Those will be on each one of the filters over here as well. So anyways, I'm super excited about these filters here, or these new tanks here. Stocking levels, or what I'm going to do with these tanks, again, my plans are the L260s are going to be moved up here. I don't know if I'll move all 29 or just move maybe like 20 of them and then sell the rest of the 260s. This tank here I'll be using for Corydoras grow outs, and that's just going to be short term. Once I start clearing out these Corydoras, then this tank will be used for Plecos. I'm not sure what species of Plecos, maybe another group of L134s, L397s, maybe 236s or 306s, I'm just not sure. This tank here will probably always be a grow out tank for Corydoras, Plecos, and Barbados. So anyways, that's what we have going on here at TM Aquatics. Let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Alright YouTube, well there you have it, a real quick update on what's going on here at TM Aquatics. Really excited about the shipping season coming up here real soon, here in another 2 or 3 weeks. Things just need to warm up a little bit more here in Minnesota before I start shipping. I think we've got a real nice supply of Corydoras. We've got quite a few leopard frog Plecos, the L134s, and some L397s. But I'm really excited about these new 60 breeders that I have here at TM Aquatics. Just gives me a lot of flexibility and some really needed tank space. So really excited to have those new additions here at TM Aquatics. But anyways, I appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to watch one of my videos. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. I'll do my best to respond when time allows. With that in mind, I do have a day corporate job, so this is only a hobby, and sometimes time is limited. So anyways, greatly appreciate the understanding. But thanks again for taking time, and until the next one, we'll catch you all later.